If you look at Bitcoin right now, it's going to be driven by institutional adoption as an asset, and it's also going to be driven by technology utility, and it's also going to be driven by macroeconomic winds. So when you look at the next 4 to 8 years, the institutional adoption is driven by the utterances of the chair of the CFTC, the SEC, by FASB accounting, the fair value accounting adoption, by the adoption by the FDIC. Decisions, if you look at BNY Mellon, if you look at BlackRock, if you look at Fidelity, if you look at, let's take Bank of America, pretty big bank. The joke I used to tell is when I decided to buy Bitcoin in 2020, I told my broker at Merrill Lynch, which is a division of Bank of America, I said, I think I want to buy Bitcoin. Can you sell it to me? He said, I can't even talk about it. I get fired. Okay. And I said, okay. You sure? He said, we don't cover it. I can't talk about it. We're afraid of it. I said, okay, well, I want to wire $175 million somewhere else. So I wired the money, and I bought the Bitcoin, and I still have the Bitcoin. 2 years go by, and just last week, my secretary called me. She says, hey, Merrill Lynch sent a bunch of documents over, and they want you to sign them. And I said, what? I didn't ask for anything. She said, well, you have to sign these documents so that you can buy Bitcoin with Bank of America, and they want you to sign them now. I said, okay. So now, they wouldn't sell it to me, and now they're jamming it down my throat. So that's like a leak for you guys. Presumably, if Merrill Lynch is going to all their clients saying, fill this out, I think the Bank of America has embraced Bitcoin. Big deal. In 2020, there were a lot of questions. There were questions about whether or not this was going to be embraced by regulators, whether this would be banned. A lot of people, there are a lot of legitimate leaders in the United States who said, this is going to be banned. They would either say it's going to be banned because it's a Ponzi, they were the deniers, or they said, this is going to be banned. Jamie Dimon said, it's just too good to be true, so it'll be banned. So there were the people that didn't understand it, and there were the people that understood it but thought it was too good, and so the government would take it away. And then when the China crackdown took place, everybody said, we see China banned it, and so that proves that it's probably going to get taken away. And what you have is a fight between the chair of the SEC and the chair of the CFTC to see who gets to regulate it or who gets to endorse it. And what's become very clear is you've had the head of the CFTC say this is a commodity. You've had the chair of the SEC say this is a commodity. You have had the Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, recite the legend of Satoshi in a speech at American University, right? Satoshi, a person or persons figured out how to transfer value without an intermediary. We now see all the regulators in the Western world have embraced this as an asset class. We've had the chair of the SEC educate the entire working group, the entire cabinet, and most of Congress as the definition of a commodity, an asset without an issuer, over and over and over again. So the last 24 months have brought mainstream adoption and legitimacy to Bitcoin, and it wasn't there in the middle of 2020. In the middle of 2018 and 2017, we didn't know whether the forks were going to work or if you could fork Bitcoin, and we hadn't settled the basic principle that this was immutable and it should be power to the people and it should not be hijacked by the exchanges or hijacked by everybody that has a decent idea to fix it or improve it. I think the outcome of the block size wars was really critical to the success of Bitcoin as the world's greatest monetary asset. So if you were around during the block size wars, and if you fought on the right side of the block size wars, then you're really the OG. You guys should give yourself a hand. There's no way that I would be here, that we would be here, that we would have an avalanche of institutional adoption without the sacrifices that were made during the block size wars and without the principled fight. And it was a very principled fight that makes the difference. And today, what you have is you have a raft of regulators, that have said, a commodity is an asset without an issuer. There is only one digital commodity. There is only one crypto asset network that is lacking an issuer, and that leaves 22,000 other things. And I'm going to quote someone, the vast majority of those other things are securities. And that's politically correct speech for they're all securities. You have a commodity. You have an example set by Satoshi, a principled example. All the other crypto bros that are waiting for clarity and guidance, and they want the people at the library that want to understand how you create a commodity. Well, Satoshi showed you how you create a commodity. You have a principled example. It's in front of your face. It's been endorsed by every thoughtful, principled person of integrity that's studied the space. And so we arrive in the middle of 2022, and the question that we wondered, will this be banned, has been answered. No, this is not being banned. This is being embraced. Will it be hacked? No, it has not been hacked. No one can hack it. And in fact, the Bitcoin mining network is approaching 300 exahash. It's the most powerful computer network in the world. It's the most powerful crypto network in the world. When people ask what backs Bitcoin, the answer is a crypto hashing network that would require 3.5 Earths worth of energy to 50% attack with conventional cloud computing from the best GPU companies in the world. So we've reached a point where it is embraced, it is not hacked, it is not going to be hacked, it is back. And can it be copied? Yeah, it's been copied 20,000 times and they've all failed. And if you want to copy it, you have a simple roadmap. You just need to have an ethical launch by a founding team that takes no monetary interest in the asset. You need to give it to hundreds of millions of people. You need to back it with 300 exahash and 3.5 Earths worth of hash energy. And you need to avoid corrupting it with all of your silly ideas and youthful exuberance and all of your little functional aspirations and all of your other attempts to accomplish something or do something that you read about last week on a message board. And so that's where we are today. First, we got to extract ourselves from our dysfunctional relationship with the rest of the crypto industry, and then we're taken over. The extraction part is, well, the crypto bros are helping us with that, right? They're helping. When we try to explain the difference between a centralized staked token and a decentralized proof of work token, we now have a few better examples, right? I think the meltdown of Terra and the meltdown of Luna and the meltdown of the Wildcat exchanges, the meltdown of FTT, the meltdown of FTX, all of those has put the fragility and the defect in architecture of the crypto industry front and center. The regulators have been rousted out of bed, to go on television to answer questions. Congress has been lit up. You're going to see every agency thinking about this. You're seeing mainstream media writing about this. The Wall Street Journal has got story after story after story after story after story. And unlike writing stories that, well, crypto is like Bitcoin except more energy efficient, that was the story a while ago. The stories now are, well, and you saw it when I was on CNBC, I said, well, BTC is not FTT. And every one of the anchors nodded and said, yeah, you got that right. It's pretty obvious why. So the meltdown of the crypto ecosystem is educating an entire generation of mainstream journalists, mainstream investors, mainstream regulators and policymakers. And they understand that now they have to do something. And the regulation that's going to come is going to stop the scams. It's going to stop the self-dealing. It's going to provide a framework by which people start to understand the difference between an ethical, economically sound, technically sound asset and a fair, equitable, principled approach versus an unethical, uneconomically sound, untechnically sound, unregistered security. So I think that that's a big part of what's going on right now.